11 a.m. at Cutler O'Neill Meyer Woodring Bayless Park Chapel. Military rites by the American Legion Post 2. Memorials are suggested to Council Bluffs Parks and Recreation. Cutler O'Neill Meyer Woodring Bayless Park Chapel is in charge. Becker, Catherine Sue Becker. She was 63. Celebration of life, 10 a.m. Thursday, November 1st at Crosby Burkett Swanson Golden Funeral Home. Crosby Burkett Swanson Golden Funeral Home is in charge. Duff, Richard Duff, 59. Funeral Wednesday, October 31st, 10:30 a.m. at Fusselman Allen Harvey Funeral Home in Louisville, Nebraska. Fusselman Allen Harvey Funeral Home is in charge. Galloway, Louise C. Galloway. She was 91. A complete notice will follow. Bethany Funeral Home is handling this. Hedrick, Lois Ann Middleton. Hedrick, 94. Services Tuesday, October 30th at 2 p.m. at the West Center Chapel. Memorials to Omaha Healthy Kids Alliance. Evie Hoffman Dorr, Cutler West Center Chapel is handling this. Healy, John P. Jack Healy. He was 92. Mass of Christian Burial, Wednesday, October 31st at 10 a.m. at St. Joan of Arc Catholic Church. Memorials to Autism Speaks. Evie Hoffman Dorr, Cutler West Center Chapel is in charge. Hurdy, H-R-D-Y, John C. Hurdy, 61. At 11 a.m. Thursday at the Cariscal Larkin Staskowitz Funeral Home. Lux, Marlene M. Lux, she was 79. Funeral Mass, 10:30 a.m. Wednesday, October 31st at the St. Charles Borromeo Catholic Church in North Bend. Chapel in North Bend is handling this. McDade, Sam McDade, he was 76 and a veteran. Celebration of Sam's life Wednesday, October 31st, 10 a.m. at Greater New Hope Missionary Baptist Church. Military honors at 11 a.m. at Omaha National Cemetery on Thursday, November 1st. Bethany Funeral Home is handling this. McGuire, Lillian E. McGuire, she was 88. Services Tuesday, 10:30 a.m. at St. Mary Antiochian Orthodox Christian Church. Memorials to St. Mary Antiochian Orthodox Christian Church. Johnny Gentleman Mortuaries and Crematory is handling this. Meaves, Hilda V. Meaves, she was 96. Funeral Thursday, 10:30 a.m. at St. John's Lutheran Church in Bennington. Memorials to the church or Bennington Rescue Squad. Hayden Golden Reichmuth Mortuary in Bennington is handling this. Mimic, John Robert Mimic, he was 72. Mass of Christian Burial Friday, November 2nd at 10:30 a.m. St. Wenceslas Catholic Church. Memorials will be directed by the family. Heafy Hoffman Dorr, Cutler West Center Chapel is handling this. Moloch, David George Moloch, he was 56. Memorial service Friday, November 2nd, 11 a.m. at Westlawn Hillcrest Funeral Home. Westlawn Hillcrest Funeral Home is, of course, in charge. Moser, Marlene Ruth Koger Lewis Moser. She was 87. Memorial service Tuesday, November 20th at 10 a.m. at Apache Wells Community Church in Mesa, Arizona. Bethany Funeral Home is in charge. O'Brien, I'm going to spell this, Idukpaye, Willie Lee O'Brien, 71. Memorial service will be held at 10 a.m. Saturday, November 10th at Prince of Peace Baptist Church in Omaha, Nebraska. Memorials can be made to the family. And there's no other information on that. Please visit www.ohiocremation.org for more information. Palmisano, Tonchita B. Palmisano, she was 101 years old. Services will be held in North Platte, Nebraska. There's no other time or information on that one. Rockwell, Sandra K. Rockwell, she was 76. Funeral service Thursday, November 1st, 1 p.m. at the Kaler Dulce Mortuary in Papillion. Sazama, James E. Sazama, 74. He was a veteran. Funeral Friday, November 2nd, 11 a.m., West Center Chapel, private interment, Omaha National Cemetery. Memorials are suggested to St. Jude Hospital. Heapy Hoffman DeWart Cutler, West Center Chapel is in charge. Skamaka, Mary Ann Versalini Skamaka, 76, of Independence, Missouri, formerly. Funeral Mass, Wednesday, October 31st, 10 a.m. at St. Bernadette's Catholic Church in Kansas City, Missouri. McGilly and Shiloh Chapel in Kansas City, Missouri is in charge. Sperling, Sherman C. Sperling, he was 95 and a veteran. Memorial service will be held at 12 noon on Tuesday, October 30th, at Temple Israel in Sterling Ridge Drive. Donations to the American Diabetes Association, Temple Israel in Omaha, or Temple Judea in Tarzana, California. John A. Gentleman Mortuaries and Crematory is handling this. Tooker, Cindy S. Tooker, she was 63. Celebration of Life, Saturday, November 3rd at 11 a.m. at Bethany Funeral Home. Bethany Funeral Home is in charge of this. Wilson, Alexander M. Sid Wilson, he was 102 and a veteran. A memorial concert will be held in the future. Memorial contributions to the Appalachian Mountain Club. Young, R. Glenn Young, he was 100. Celebration of Life, Wednesday, October 31st at 6:30 p.m. Contributions can be made to Youth Challenge International Bible Institute. West Lawn Hillcrest Funeral Home is in charge. And that concludes the obituaries and funeral arrangements in the World Herald.
Thanks, Beth. Well, here's the notices in today's Journal Star. The first is for Faisal, Jack Allen Faisal, age 58. Memorials can be made out to the family. Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. Butterfield, Tyler Butterfield, age 20, of Lincoln. Tyler died as a result of a traffic accident. In lieu of flowers, the families request that memorials be made to the family. Stanislav Funeral Chapel is in charge of the arrangements. Hammerschmidt, Eric Stephen Hammerschmidt, age 47, of Lincoln. Memorials to the family for his son's college fund. Buttress, Mazer, and Love is in charge of arrangements. Murphy, Clayton Murphy, age 85, of Lincoln. Roper and Sons is handling the arrangements and can handle any questions you may have. Carly, Wilbur E. Bill Carly, age 97. Memorials to St. Mark's Foundation, Grand Lodge Scholarship Fund. Arrangements by Roper and Sons. Applegarth, Clyde A. Applegarth, age 91, of Waverly. Memorials to the family for future designation. Roper and Sons Chapel in Lincoln handling the arrangements. Brenton, Brenda Diane Brenton, age 57, of Davis, California, formerly of Lincoln. She died on October 22nd. Memorial contributions in honor of Brenda may be sent to the Americans for the Arts. No funeral home has been listed. That website for Americans for the Arts is www.americansforthearts.org. Anderson, Brent D. Anderson, age 51 of Lincoln. Let's see. Memorials, Food Bank of Lincoln, Backpack Program, or the Capital Humane Society. Roper and Sons Funeral Home, South Lincoln Chapel, handling the arrangements. Haley, age 80, Harlan R. Haley of Lincoln. Memorials to the Nebraska Alzheimer's Association. Buthurst, Mazer, and Love Funeral Home, handling the arrangements. Oberg, Leland A. Oberg, maiden name of Lee, age 93 of Lincoln. Funeral services will be held at the Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home, October 31st. And there is one more here. And there's a write-up actually in the news section, and it's for the younger brother of legendary Nebraska football coach Tom Osborne has died following a crash west of Hastings. John C. Jack Osborne, age 78 of Hastings, died Sunday evening after his vehicle collided with another vehicle on U.S. Highway 6. The Adams County Sheriff's Office told KSNB TV that Osborne was southbound on Juanita Avenue, failed to yield at a stop sign, and collided with the westbound vehicle at about 7:50 p.m. The other driver, 19-year-old Dariana Burr, wasn't seriously injured. Both drivers were wearing seatbelts, and alcohol is not believed to have been a factor in the crash, the TV station reported. Osborne was CEO of Industrial Irrigation, a Hastings-based dealer of customized engines for the agricultural, industrial, and oil and gas industries. A star track athlete at Hastings College in the 1960s, he later served on the college's board of trustees from 1992 to 2004. He was also a board member of the Hastings Community Foundation. There have been 4 generations of Osbornes on our board of trustees, and the values of Jack and the entire Osborne family what they stand for are etched into our mission as a college. It's who we are and what we do at Hastings College. Gary Freeman, executive director of the Hastings College Foundation, said in a news release. We will always remember Jack's contribution, support, and encouragement over the years. He will be deeply missed around campus and the community. Jack Osborne's son, Justin, is a Hastings College trustee and president of the family-run business. And those are today's, death notices, and also a little report on Jack Osborne.
Listeners' memorials to the Radio Talking Book Network are tax deductible, a long way to keeping Radio Talking Book on the air. Please keep Radio Talking Book in mind when memorials are listed as donor's choice or your favorite charity. Donations should be sent to Radio Talking Book Network, 7101 Newport Avenue, Suite 205, Omaha, Nebraska, 68152. Thank you for being a Radio Talking Book listener and supporter.
Thank you very much, Bev. We'll return
right
to
on
our
the button.
stars in just a moment. Before we get to our break, I want to make you aware of the fact that all this week, at least through Wednesday,
What's
we're
that?
doing a
I wish
scary
they let us
story.
know.
Oh, are we
podcast
under now?
here on Radio Talking Book.
You know, you might
Book
scratch
Development Day.
and
That's
scratch
true.
your head.
That's
Authors of horror, including Stephen King, Edgar Allan Poe,
I don't think we have a whole lot of viewers,
No.
but
and
still.
Alfred Noyes and others. So, if you like scary stories, tune in
Stay afterwards.
today at 1.
Did you read some stories for him
Tomorrow,
today?
we'll preempt a lot of our
He
programs.
needs another one.
A lot of our
4 or 5
volunteers who
minutes.
These are for the Halloween. We're gonna run a whole bunch of them on
material will
Halloween.
be
I do
giving us
mystery
their
theater
talents
every
for
week.
stories, including our readers we're currently listening to, Don Van and Bev Leidick. So excited for that. This is the Radio Talking Book Network in Omaha, Nebraska. We've
I
been
was,
proudly serving our blind and visually impaired listeners for 44
Going to do
years.
the Telltale
Radio
Heart,
Talking Book is brought to you with the
but
cooperation of
they don't need it. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Practice and practice.
Oh.
Well, I'll do it for Mystery Theater.
Yeah, I was gonna say, go ahead and record it and
Yeah.
save it for sometime.
But Mystery Theater is only a half hour, and that might be a little bit
11
long.
a.m. Let's do this now.
Maybe I can cut it a
with
little
Jay Nielsen.
Man, I got.
Good morning.
All
It's
it is
Tuesday,
is-
October 30th.
It's all it is.
Your
you know,
Meals on Wheels
vote for
menu
me,
for
vote for me,
today
vote for
is
me.
Yeah.
ranch chicken stir
I know.
fry,
I'm trying to find a
romaine noodles,
syndicated.
Japanese
that
blind
might-
veggies,
Just
vegetable
something more.
egg roll, strawberry applesauce.
You could probably read a
and
few of those
1% milk.
letters.
Yeah, I could try to find
You know,
both sides. There it is.
I've got, a whole bunch of them today. I usually have two.
Yeah, you do have a whole bunch?
Where's the other one?
Directed address, that's for you, John. Again, here is Jay Nielsen.
I can't even find the other side of the.
Here is a public notice, a notice of a meeting of the Board of Commissioners to the
I
Nebraska
got 5,
Commission
and then
for the
there's some
Blind
more
and
over
Visually
here, but
Impaired.
these are all,
They will meet Saturday, November 3rd, 2018,
there's only one.
beginning at 9
I
a.m.
think I'll read.
The focus topic will be Outlook Nebraska and will include a presentation by the ONI staff. The meeting will be held at Outlook Nebraska. The address is
But I like some of these are kind of liberal,
4125
so I'm gonna
South
read them.
72nd Street in Omaha.
I'll try to find
If
one of each.
reasonable
You know,
accommodations
I'm
are needed, please
I'm looking
contact
at the ones here. These are
NCBI
like from these,
at
and do I say
402
Republicans? They're from
471
Republican
Sure.
politicians.
2891.
Peterson's from
soon
my
as
county.
possible.
She was on state
Every
legislature.
effort will be made to
She
arrange
wouldn't
the
vote
needed
for the
accommodation.
They took
An
her kids
agenda
away.
may be obtained after October
Threatened.
Yeah.
24th.
Lee Terry. I mean, Jay.
Oh, come on. Who's he for?
809
Well, he's probably for bacon.
2419 during regular business hours. Again,
McPherson.
this is a meeting of the
Oh,
Board of
McPherson's
Commissioners
a
to the
spook.
Nebraska
Yeah,
Commission for the
McPherson.
Blind and Visually Impaired,
He's the one who was,
Saturday, November 3rd at 9 a.m. at Outlook,
Social
Nebraska.
studies textbooks.
Reading of
Writing
the Omaha
them.
World Herald and
Parent-
Lincoln Journal
Parents should
Star
be
are
involved in
brought to
writing
you today
textbooks. My
by
God, half these people can't even
Wellcare
write their own name.
proudly focused
Let alone write a
exclusively
text.
why would they write?
on
That's
government-sponsored
silly.
managed care
You could go
services
first.
through Medicaid
And you know,
and
Parents
Medicare
Parents
prescription
also
drug
ought to be able
plans,
to prescribe medicine.
families, children, and seniors in
Why
Nebraska.
not?
For more about
CDC,
WellCare,
head of the
call today at
CDC today is talking about
1-888-255-2605
two things that was pretty interesting.
or visit
Pandemic, Chancellor Pandemic flu.
www.wellcare.com
He's also
/Nebraska.
was talking about opioid.
Thank you, Michael. Let's now return to Studio A for the second hour of the
addiction
live
that his
reading
own
of
son
Lincoln
was
Journal
in
Star.
Oh, geez.
Once again, welcoming back to the microphones our readers. Hello, Bev Leidick and Don Van. Go ahead, folks.
Thanks, Brian. And yes, we are back, and it's time for the editorials, which we begin with some letters to the editor. Now, today there's like 6 letters I'm able to read, or will be able to read here. Usually there's 2, so it's red letter day, no pun intended, for the Lincoln Journal Star. The first is from June Simpson of Lincoln, and June writes, huge political signs cluster many major intersections in Nebraska's cities. Placed strategically by big money campaigns, they are meant to cement control by wealthy politicians. Our current Republican-controlled Congress has voted to reduce their own taxes and taxes for Donald Trump, his family, and for his mega millionaire buddies, many of whom are in the administration. U.S. debt increased by $1.2 trillion the most recent fiscal year. Donald Trump's father, Fred Trump, gifted and rescued him to the tune of an estimated $413 million in today's dollars, according to the New York Times. Daddy's money fixed his poor decisions. Are you, Fred? Are you able to hide millions in assets by tax fraud to save money to bail out your little prince? Beside his father's funds, Trump's business interests have received tens of millions of dollars in investments from Russian investors. Yes, Russia. Now he controls Congress through bullying and tweet tantrums. He uses our tax dollars to undermine environmental protections. He uses our tax dollars to lock up children and families in for-profit prisons along our Mexican border. Like Fred did, will we bail him out? What will be the price? You are not Fred or Russia. Say no with your votes in November. This next letter is from Richard Pearsall of Lincoln. And Richard writes, it's astonishing to me that at least one of our U.S. senators is ignoring the troubles caused Nebraska farmers and manufacturers by the Trump regime's trade policy, as described in a panel discussion reported by Matt Oldberding in the Journal Star on October 18th, entitled Trade Wars Hurting Nebraska. She has resisted initiatives to empower Congress to correct this asinine disruption of agricultural export markets and the imposition of unnecessary costs on manufacturers. One would have to conclude she is either ignorant of economic reasoning or is more beholden to the foolish president who imposed these difficulties than she is to her own farm and factory constituents. Send her back to the ranch to lie fallow and elect Jane Raybould, a businesswoman who knows and values those who work in and own Nebraska's most important economic sectors. The next letter is from Tori Olson of Kearney. When first reading about Nebraska's new slogan, I laughed. Nebraska, honestly, it's not for everyone, is ironic. It sums up a lot of the conversations I have with people who have never visited the great state before. It is a clever way to get people to rethink their misconceptions and biases about Nebraska and encourage them to give it a try. But what if the slogan reaches deeper than intended and shines a light on Nebraska's worst qualities? What if there is honesty behind the claim it is not for everyone? Maybe the slogan is right. Maybe Nebraska is not for everyone. Maybe it is only for those Pete Ricketts and the rest of his posse deemed worthy of living here. Maybe Nebraska isn't for low-income people in need of health care, women seeking reproduction health, immigrants in search of a new life, LGBT folk wanting workplace protections, and people wanting their views reflected in government. But we can change that. The midterms are right around the corner, and we have the opportunity to better Nebraska. Maybe the midterms can even put the new slogan back to its rightful place as just an ironic tourism campaign. Maybe after November 6th, Nebraska will have leaders who want Nebraska to be a safe and welcoming place for people of all walks of life to prosper. I would like to think that is what majority of hardworking Nebraskans want, to be a place that loves our neighbors, all of them. Tori Olson, Kearney. Here's a short letter from Mike. I'm going to spell his name, C-V-I-T-A-K. Svitak. Mike Svitak from Denton. Mike writes, thank you, Jane That is exactly why we sent her to Washington and will do so again. Here's one from Dr. Leslie Spry of Lincoln. It is estimated that 90,000 Nebraskans are without health insurance and would benefit from Initiative 427 being adopted in this state. What do we know about these 90,000 Nebraskans? We know that they are gainfully employed. To be eligible for this benefit, individuals must earn above the federal poverty level, about $12,000 to $17,000 for an individual. This initiative applies to individuals between the ages of 19 and 64. In the general population between ages 19 and 64, the prevalence of chronic medical illness, CMI, is roughly 30%. Approximately 75 cents out of every healthcare dollar is spent on CMI. Those without CMI are relatively inexpensive. Individuals without insurance and with CMI get care in the worst way, which is to be seen for the episodic acute care. CMI must be managed continuously to prevent the known expensive complications. In my dialysis unit today, 60% of people on dialysis are there because of high blood pressure and diabetes that was cared for inadequately. If this CMI had been identified and managed well, they would not need dialysis. Each one of those individuals costs more than $70,000 per year for dialysis therapy. Traditional Medicaid traps people with CMI. Those with CMI must rely on Medicaid to keep well and have continuous access to medical care. Those starting the job may find health care benefits threatened. They forego medical care needed to manage their CMI. There is currently no way to transition between Medicaid and commercial health insurance. For them, there is a gap in coverage and access to health care. That's what I envision for Initiative 427, a way for folks with CMI to work their way off Medicaid and hopefully stay out of my dialysis unit. And the last letter is from Kristen Grosskopf, Grosskopf of Lincoln. And Kristen writes, surely the consistent party line voter, Senator Ben Sasse, was joking when he told the Journal-Star about a bill he planned to propose requiring presidential candidates to reveal their tax information. That's from a September 17th article. Sasse bill calls for tax disclosure. Such a move would not really make plenty of his colleagues unhappy. That was in quotes. Many of his Republican colleagues went on record expressing dismay when Trump refused to follow tradition on that point. I do have a related suggestion, though. Require all congressional candidates to publish their tax returns, starting with 2 years back for new candidates, and again each year after attaining office. I would like to know which representatives of the House and Senate may be using their offices to enrich themselves. Sometimes I wonder how many representatives become multimillionaires after attaining office. I also wonder why we allow representatives to determine their own salaries. Yep.
Thanks. These are the letters to the public pulse in the Omaha World Herald today. This first one is from Philip O'Brien of Omaha. Both of Nebraska's U.S. senators seem to take Nebraskans for granted, especially if they are members of the GOP, and ignore those who are independent or of a Democratic leaning. Senator Deb Fischer tends to show more interest in the well-to-do than to take the time to listen to as many Nebraskans in order to serve them better. She follows the party line, and in case of Judge Brett Kavanaugh, she seemed to have predetermined she would vote for him without listening to the people she serves or ignore his subsequent behavior of lacking balanced temperament when accused by Christine Blasey Ford. Fisher salutes the party line. Her opponent, Lincoln City Councilwoman Jane Raybould, if elected, would more earnestly try to talk, learn from, and listen to as many Nebraskans as possible to serve all the citizens of the state. And whereas Fisher seems committed to divisiveness of President Donald Trump and her party first, Raybould seems more committed to Nebraskans first. I recommend we give her a chance on November 6th. Once again, that letter was from Philip O'Brien of Omaha. Here's a letter from Brentley Bowen of Omaha. According to a March 26, 2018 article from the Brookings Institute entitled, "Do States Regret Expanding Medicaid?" They do not. The 33 states that have expanded Medicaid have found actual costs modest. Some have reduced state spending as a result of expansion. Republican governors in Arkansas, Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, and Ohio continue to support expansion. 4 of these have opposed congressional efforts to repeal expansion. Republican-led legislatures in Arkansas, North Dakota, and New Hampshire have approved or recertified initial expansion. None of the states with legislative triggers allowing review have revoked expansion. Vote yes on Initiative 427, and that was from Brentley Bowen of Omaha. From Pamela Johnson of Blue Hill, Nebraska comes this letter. If Medicaid is passed in Nebraska, I think it will bankrupt the state. Health insurance should not be a right for people, and then the taxpayers have to pay for it. There are more jobs than people can fill with the economic surge. In our country, people have to learn how to help themselves and not look for the government to bail them out all the time. Congress needs to get rid of Obamacare altogether and let people get the affordable insurance they want. We need to get the government out of things. Medicaid is a government welfare program. This is an important election, and everyone needs to go vote to save our country. Once again, that's from Pamela Johnson of Blue Hill, Nebraska. From Ben Reinhardt of Omaha comes this letter. The demonizing of Democrats has gone too far. Republicans have used the Clintons, George Soros, and others as the boogeyman to rile up their base, stoking fear and hatred. These tactics led to attempted bombings. This violence is on all Republicans' hands. Some in the GOP have taken a moment to denounce violence on both sides, then quickly turned around and casually used one of the attempted victims in another ad attack. This is incredibly tone deaf and continues the problem. I'm urging Senator Spin Sass and Deb Fisher and my representative Don Bacon to do better. They must keep these names out of their negative campaigns. They must discourage followers from chanting, "Lock them up." They must demand their colleagues end the hate-filled rhetoric. I urge my elected officials to be the civil politicians they claim to want more of. And once again, that letter was from Ben Reinhardt of Omaha.
Thanks, Bev. Well, it's just about time to move on. It's 19 minutes after the hour, and we're going to move on to living sections and entertainment sections of today's paper. And I've got an article here by Cindy Lang Kubik that it's another take on the motto that we already heard about from one letter writer, and that is, Nebraska. Honestly, it's not for everyone. I think you'll like this. Well, this is Cindy Lang Kubik. John and Alex Mabry were sipping coffee last Tuesday at the mill, catching up when he came up with the idea, a riff on the new Nebraska tourism slogan that had everyone talking. The slogan that spawned 1,000 tongue-in-cheek knockoffs. You know it, Nebraska. Honestly, it's not for everyone. No, the dad and his daughter meet every week before heading off to work. John as the development director at the Food Bank of Lincoln, Alex as a graphic designer at Huddle. At some point in their conversation, the topic of that buzz-creating slogan came up. I think I asked him about the campaign and what he thought, Alex said Monday. John declared himself a big fan. I know not everyone feels that the same, but I thought it was perfect. And since he is also a big fan of getting food in the hands of people who don't have enough to eat, he wondered out loud to his daughter about how the food bank could ride the coattails of the state's new motto. He tweaked it in his head. He changed 2 words and came up with a different kind of campaign. Hunger, honestly, it's not for anyone. Catchy and 100% accurate. It seemed like a t-shirt worthy slogan too, something that could be a walking reminder of the 227,350 Nebraskans who suffer from food insecurity. A third of that number, children. Before they drained their coffee mugs, Alex offered to help with a design. She sat down at her computer later that day and fiddled with fonts and sent her dad a mock-up. Is this what you had in mind? Well, it was. But then John started having second thoughts. My sense of humor is so screwed up, I didn't know if people would think it was clever or stupid or what. So he ran the slogan and the shirt design by his wife Anna, and he ran it by a friend over beers at a brewery, and he ran it by a co-worker at the food bank. And everyone said, you got to do something. A few days later, 200 shirts arrived in all sizes and just one color, Husker red. The food bank posted a photo of the still hot off the press t-shirts on its Facebook page, and followers lined up in favor of the idea. Brilliant. Awesome. Well played. One of the nonprofit supporters went one step farther. I'll take a dozen. Late Monday morning, John headed up the interstate to Omaha to deliver 100 shirts to the food bank for the Heartland, which also thought the shirts were brilliant and awesome. More shirts are on the way, courtesy of the Forest Street Clothing Company, a local t-shirt design business that turned around the initial order on quick notice. Thursday, from noon to 4 p.m., John will be back at the downtown mill where the hunger shirt idea was hatched. He and the food bank crew will have plenty of hunger shirts on hand, and they won't be charging for them, but they will have a jar for donations. The cost of each shirt is about $10. Anything above that will go to feeding the hungry. The main thing we want to accomplish is to educate people about the need, John says. The man behind the motto tipped his hat to his morning coffee date daughter. She has so much artistic talent and a really big heart. Alex's dad came to Nebraska 20 years ago, making his living with words at the Journal-Star before he headed off to make a difference in the lives of the hungry. He's a guy with a big heart, too, and an always clever way with words, who appreciates a good turn of phrase when he hears one. Like those folks at the Nebraska Tourism Commission, whom he called Monday. No one picked up. Perhaps they were out tanking on the Middle Loop River, or taking in Toadstool Park, or waiting for a perfect sunset somewhere on the prairie. John left them a message anyway, thanking them for the inspiration. We couldn't have done this without them. I
Okay.
like that, by the way, don't you?
Yes,
Hunger
I
is
did.
not for anyone.
Yeah, when you think there's that many people in Nebraska,
boy, you
that's
bet.
a serious problem. Well, here are some problems addressed to Amy Dickinson in her column today, Dear Amy. Dear Amy, my siblings recently disclosed that our mother subjected them to sexual, mental, and physical abuse. As a child, I was subjected to physical and mental abuse at her hand, but I had always assumed that I was the sole focus of my mother's ire. I moved out of the house the day after high school graduation. I no longer have any contact with her. One of my siblings has informed me that after I left home and without me there as a focal point, my mother turned her abuse toward my siblings. The worst of the abuse involved two of my sisters who were sexually assaulted by friends of my mother's. My mother knew about and condoned this. No one ever went to the police. Hearing that my mother's behavior escalated after I left home caused me great guilt for not having been there for them when they were children. I am at a loss for the next steps to take. One of my sisters has come to me for help with recovering from the trauma of her childhood. I've thought about talking with the police. However, the assaults were over 30 years ago and the statute of limitations has long passed. Our mother is 78 and she is active in her church, where she is likely has contact with children. Confronting her will likely achieve nothing. What should I do? Signed, Guilty. Dear Guilty, first you should create a safe and open space where your siblings can tell their stories if they want to. Some might not want to talk about this. Tell them you believe them and emotionally hold them close. Your own experience might make this sort of intimacy challenging, but now is the time to come home figuratively, to be the best and most loving version of yourself that you can possibly be. If a sister wants to go to the police, go with her, regardless of the statute of limitations. And yes, confront your mother. If being in her presence would traumatize you, then write her a letter as individuals or as a group. If you truly believe that she is a potential danger to any children, then you are duty bound to report this to her church clergy as well as to the police. But if your main impulse is to ruin her reputation in her church community, then I don't believe you should do so. RAINN.org, which is spelled RAINN.org, offers a 24-hour telephone hotline. The number is 800-656-4673 with an online chat option. Contact a RAIN counselor for advice and local services. Here's another letter. Dear Amy, my daughter is getting married. We are not allowing +1s because of the expense. Invites were sent with RSVP cards stating the number of seats reserved for each family. To my sister and her family, I noted we had 4 seats reserved for their family of 4. In the response card, guests were simply supposed to state if all the guests were coming or to fill in a number that would be attending if not everyone could make it. My sister changed the number from 4 to 5 and added the name of my niece's college roommate who I don't even know. How do I clear this up with her? I thought my RSVP card would make this clear. Signed, Unsure Sister. Dear Unsure, it's called the telephone. You use it immediately to communicate with your sister about her misunderstanding. You say, "Hi, I just received your RSVP card and I see you have added a person. Unfortunately, we can't add any guests. We're excited to see you, Wayne, and the kids." Your sister has already leapt over a nicely engraved boundary, and so she will likely attempt to overpower you in this context too. Just respond firmly, consistently, and politely. Repeat after me. Her problem, wanting her nearly grown daughter to have a play date at a family wedding, is not your problem. Dear Amy, I just wanted to send some hugs to sad mom who is raising a toddler and a newborn. My own kids were 18 months apart, and those early months were rough. I felt like a robot most days, but now my kids are both grown, productive adults, and I look back on those difficult days fondly. We've all been there. Sad should lean on dad, grandparents, and aunts and uncles to give her some rest, but she's got this, because it turned out that I did too. Signed, Happy Mom. Dear Happy, help, support, and encouragement is exactly what this mom needs.
Thanks, Bev. Well, let's hear the advice column from the psychotherapist, Dr. Barton Goldsmith. And he's going to give us 7 steps to being a happy couple. Now, being a happy couple should come naturally, but there are a few things you can do to level up your romantic life and make your relationship bulletproof. Here are some suggestions. Be nice to your in-laws. Don't make them outlaws, make them friends. All it takes is being nice to them and not letting their quirks get to you. You have your own quirks, so be tolerant. As you go through life with these people, they will become easier to be around and they will become your family. My mother-in-law is here, and it's making my wife very happy, and I'm getting in a little football. It's also nice having mommy energy around the house. Don't hold grudges. Don't hold on to the little things that bug you about the one you love. If it becomes an ingrained habit to hate that part of your partner, it will taint the rest of your marriage. As we mature, letting go of these little things becomes easier, but talking a little more from the start about what you want is the best prevention and relationship protector. Hold off making decisions by yourself. If your decision can affect your lifestyle, hold off until you can talk to your partner. For example, we hate our kitchen faucet, and the plumber was here, but rather than make a unilateral decision and pick a new one, I just told him to fix it for now. Tonight, we will start researching new faucets. It will be fun, and I do have a vote. I've researched faucets. They're a blast, I should say. Anyway, Dr. Goldsmith wants a touchless model, but she gets the final decision. And I did get to pick out the barbecue. Good. Argue respectfully. No name calling, belittling, threatening the relationship, or bullying. Dear Abby once said, "We never talk about divorce. Murder sometimes, but never divorce." That works for me. You will have fights. They are part of life and they are uncomfortable. You just don't need to make them more so. I never put my wife down because that just ends up making me look and feel bad, and no one deserves to be treated that way. Stay affectionate even if you aren't sexual. People go through things that can prevent them from having sex. Some of them are physical and some are emotional, but the affection should not stop. If for some reason you are withholding sex as a punishment for some resentment you are carrying, you need to seek therapy because the resentment will only push the two of you further apart. Have adventures. That's number 6. Go to places the two of you have never gone to before. It's really that simple. I have a favorite restaurant, but we go there only every few months because we are trying every place in town. It's a tough job, but someone has to do it. Besides, research shows that having new experiences together makes you closer. And finally, share your love. Children, pets, friends, and family will all help you increase your love. The more you give, the more you have to give. I get a great deal of pleasure watching my wife play with the animals. They love each other so much, it's just heartwarming. She's also great with the little kids who all think she is magical because she interacts with them like a Disney princess. It's really fun to watch, and again, it just brings in more love to both our lives. These simple suggestions require that you have an open heart and that you want to make things better. Couples who strive to make their relationships nicer have a much better time together than those who just stay with the status quo and let negative feelings fester.
Well, thank you for those words, Don.
Okay. They're not mine.
Well, next time I look at a water faucet, I'll think about it in a whole new way. Here's a letter, a feature story from Omaha World Herald with Veterans Day coming up. It's very appropriate. When people mention the greatest generation, the kids at Black Elk Elementary know exactly who they're talking about. He's their pen pal. For several years, the Millard students have been pen pals with Richard Slovic, 91, a veteran of World War II. At an assembly Monday, students, staff, and family surprised Slovic, presenting him with replacements for a military ribbon and medal he earned, but then lost half a century ago. Army National Guard Lieutenant Colonel Stephen Collins officiated, awarding Slovic the World War II Victory Ribbon and Army Occupation Medal for Germany. Fourth grader Charlie Fish, one of the pen pal buddies, did the honor of pinning them on Slovic's chest. According to Slovic's daughter, Teresa Hack, he graduated early from Omaha South High School in the winter of 1945 and entered the Army. He shipped out to Europe, where he stayed until he was no longer needed. Upon separating from the military in November 1946, Slovic was homesick and excited to see his sweetheart and future wife, Loretta. So he took off for home, leaving his personal belongings, including the medals, with a mail clerk to ship back. I waited for them, and he never did mail them back, Slovic said. His niece, Black Elk third grade teacher Gina Hill, had initiated the pen pal program with her class. Hill thought it would be good for her uncle, who lives in an assisted living facility, to get mail. She encouraged the kids to ask him about the war. It was good for the kids, she said. Their writing got better, and once Uncle Rich wrote back, their eyes would light up, she said. He could explain to the kids about shared party line phones from his day. They could explain about iPads. Hack said she came up with the idea to replace the medal and ribbon. She learned from letters to the kids how much the lost medals bothered her dad. It made sense to do it at the school. Slovic, who grew up around the Omaha stockyards and was an avid outdoorsman, found common ground with Charlie Fish. They both loved fishing. So Charlie wrote about his fishing exploits, and Slovic wrote about his favorite fishing holes. Charlie was a natural to pin the medals. He handled the task without incident. I felt nervous to do it, he said, and had a lot of pressure on me. Afterward, the two had a chance to shoot the breeze while family and school officials took pictures. Charlie, you've got to come and see me now, Slovic told the boy. I've got a tackle box. You can go in it and pick out what you want. You got fishing rods? Yeah, Charlie answered. The event left Gina Hill emotional, particularly when the quilt was placed around her uncle's shoulders. The quilt was made by volunteers and presented to veterans who've been touched by war. It just had a lot of love wrapped around him, she said.
Well, it's 38 minutes after the hour, and I think we could move on to business and the markets. Well, there's a couple of local restaurants in Lincoln that are closing that you may want to know about. Two Lincoln restaurants on Monday announced plans to close. One of them is Lincoln's original Five Guys Burgers and Fries location. Ryan Funke, who owns the location at 1230 Peace Street, as well as several others in Lincoln and Omaha, said the restaurant's last day will be Wednesday, and it will close its doors at 2 p.m. The store had been underperforming for quite some time, and we were near the end of the lease, so we decided it was time to close, Funke said in an email. Funke, who owns several restaurants and bars in Lincoln, bought the franchise rights for Five Guys in Lincoln and Omaha in 2013 and said at the time that the downtown restaurant was struggling. He eventually opened two more restaurants in Lincoln at 2525 Pine Lake Road and at Gateway Mall. Funke said those locations, as well as 3 in Omaha, are doing well and will continue to operate. The other restaurant announcing a closing on Monday was Cowboy Chicken. The restaurant at 2801 Pine Lake Road, Suite J, posted a notice on its door and its Facebook page announcing the closing effective Monday. Owners Joe and Rhonda Armstrong said in the note that the closing decision was made with a heavy heart, but they felt it was the only decision we could make for the fiscal and physical health of our family. The Armstrongs and their partners said at the time that they had franchise rights for Nebraska and Kansas, but it does not appear they opened any other restaurants.
From New York, the percentage of Americans who do not have a bank account fell to a record low last year, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation said last week, a sign that the economic fortunes of the country's most vulnerable people continue to improve. In 2017, approximately 6.5% of U.S. households did not have a primary bank account. That is down from 7% in 2015 and 8.2% in 2011. That translates into roughly 14.1 million adults without a bank account. Not having a bank account, also known as being unbanked, can make everyday life more challenging. Saving money in a secure place becomes more difficult. Doing any sort of online transaction is nearly impossible, and everyday bills need to be routinely paid through expensive check cashers. Without a bank account, it's also impossible to use other financial services like paying with credit cards, buying a house, or even taking out a payday loan. The reasons for not having a bank account remain steady from previous surveys, with not having enough money the number one reason for doing so. Not trusting banks was another popular reason for not being banked. The biggest improvement happened among Black and Hispanic households. The number of households led by an African American without a bank account fell to 16.9% last year, according to the FDIC, while 14% of Hispanic households were without a bank account. Those figures were down from more than 20% of Black households and 18% of Hispanic households in 2013. There were still places that showed many unable to access basic financial needs. Roughly 19% of American households are considered by the FDIC to be unbanked, which means they have a primary banked, I'm going to read that again. Roughly 19% of American households are considered by the FDIC to be underbanked, which means they have a primary bank account, but use non-traditional financial services like pawn shops.
Well, a sign in the window of a clothing store in Manhattan is already putting shoppers on notice. It will be closed on Election Day, so employees will have time to vote. Companies aren't required to shut down on November 6th, but many give their staffers paid time off to go to the polls. 44%, according to a survey by the Society for Human Resources Management, a trade group. Small business owners who wonder what to do should first check their state and local laws. There's no federal requirement requiring employers to give staffers time off to vote, but a majority of the states do. Now, in Nebraska, the law states that workers who are required to be at work during the entire time polls are open must be given up to 2 hours to vote. Most states have similar statutes, but the laws vary widely in how much time companies must give and when they must give it. Now, before we move on to sports, we want to remind everyone that WellCare of Nebraska is proud to bring you today's reading of the Omaha World Herald and Lincoln Journal-Star. For more about WellCare, call today at 1-888-255-2605 or visit www.wellcare.com/Nebraska. Now, on to sports.
Okay, we're going to start with a story from the World Herald. it's about what's called an accountability list that's on the board now down in Lincoln in the Huskers locker room. Divine Ozigbo was skeptical about the so-called accountability list at first. It didn't seem like the kind of thing that could help Nebraska win football games. Started by coaches and eventually taken over by captains like seniors Gerald Foster and Luke Gifford, the idea is to track how well players handle their off-the-field responsibilities, going to class, lifting weights, receiving treatment, getting meals. Shirk any of those duties, and their name goes on a list for all to see. But the Huskers have seen a funny pattern emerge. Some names were listed during the first couple of weeks against Akron and when the team played well opposite Colorado. More went up as the losing streak deepened at Michigan and against Purdue. Then it thinned out against Northwestern and has leveled off during the recent 2-game winning streak. Now there's just not that many people on the list, junior linebacker Muhammad Berry said. If there are people, it's probably 1 or 2. Said Ozigbo, it seems to be proven right. The smaller the list gets, those are our better weeks, and it's gradually getting smaller over time. As Nebraska focuses on internal improvement, the list is another aid for helping to view opponents as nameless and faceless. That goal by Coach Scott Frost this season will be tested more than ever this week as the Huskers go from overmatched FCS school Bethune-Cookman to reigning Big Ten champion Ohio State. Quarterback Adrian Martinez says human nature doesn't for him about transition of opponents. We're in such a habit of attacking each day, he said. Cornerback DeCap said this week feels like the right time to play the Buckeyes. Because of the Nebraska is on after winning its past 2 games by a combined 98-37 points. Others around the program felt optimistic even amid the 0-6 start. Many were laughing and loose after those. Frost said team demeanor changed on Mondays, no matter what the weekend result was. Rather, everyone simply back on the field. It's gotten overall a lot better. Accountability. Newsflash, when guys are doing things the right way, we win more games. The guys get it now, and we're not asking anybody to do anything crazy. We're asking them to be where they're supposed to be on time and do the right things. What's crazy is when you're doing that, fun. Life gets more fun. Cutting ways around things and not being reliable isn't successful on the field or off. But learned either when you're young or when you're in college adult. As a team, that's probably where I've seen the most growth. Guys are starting to understand that when they have a responsibility, they need to live up to it and be where they're supposed to be. Still, many 56-14 loss to Ohio and the 62-3 outcome in Columbus in 2016. The Huskers didn't force a single punt in those games, giving up 16 touchdowns on 22 total drives. Recognize that a missed assignment or tackle Saturday at the Horseshoe is more likely to result in a long touchdown than last week. A strong start is especially afternoon Eastern time as to bounce back from its first defeat with a Martinez, who took an official visit to Columbus last year as a recruit. The way to approach the challenge is just another day in the Big Ten. The way the Huskers are self-focused, they're already happy. I believe in our team. I believe in my teammates, and I know we believe in each other, Martinez said. There's no question in all of our minds that we can compete with Ohio State and beat Ohio State. That's our goal. I think if you go into a game thinking you can't win, then you're already lost.
Thanks, Bev. Well, the article about the Husker men's hoops. Tim Miles did it as best he could, without being asked about the decided federal into college basketball. But there are a few programs in the world of power who haven't been touched by the events of the last 2 years. Honestly, it's very distressing. It's sad. It's upsetting to me to see the layers of things on illegally. I think that in the long is going to have and really set a standard, Miles said. And this isn't amateurism as much as it's about let's do the right thing. The FBI's investigation into the underworld college hoops recruiting reached its full last week when Agent Christian Dawkins, executive Jim Gatto, and consultant Merrill Code were found guilty of wire fraud and conspiracy to commit fraud. There will be more trials and more discoveries. The onion continues to be peeled back. To what level schools be in the morass remains to be seen. And Miles has been around long enough to know when and where to start to get off kilter in recruiting. You know, when you're down, Miles said, sometimes you might suspect it like, this one's a little funky here. Like, why is this kid interested in us? Or whatever it might be. And pretty soon somebody asks for something like, no, sorry, we being an Adidas sponsored school, Nebraska has not been named in any federal investigation. That puts the Huskers in a much more comfortable position than their neighbors. Creighton was named as part of the investigation into the recruitment of Brian Bowen. And over the weekend, ESPN obtained cell phone records that showed Dawkins, Blue Jays coach Greg McDermott, CU assistant Preston Murphy, and former Jays Patton, 17. Specifically about any schools right next to us, that's their business, not mine. I don't know. Wait, Miles said. It's just sad, but I think again, I look at it like anything. It's a contraction to expand and be even better, I hope. Monday, no one has gone through their coaching career without violation of NCAA rules. He recalled a time at Colorado State assistants out recruiting and had then director of operations Craig an opponent, which is against NCAA. That led to a reprimand. It's not the same as providing impermissible benefits or being caught up in a fiction into funneling players into certain programs. That isn't as curious as anyone to see where the road eventually leads. It's just sad when you look at your and wonder, why doesn't that team ever go away? There's a reason, obviously, right? Miles said. So hopefully it gets cleared up.
With the hope of milder weather, Horseman's Park will once live meet next year in May and June. The Nebraska Racing Commission approved the state's 2019 live race dates at a meeting Monday in Lincoln. 58 days of live thoroughbred racing at 5 racetracks, including 9 days at the Omaha facility. The second straight year, Horseman's Park live meet around the races. Horseman's Park is in May and 3 in June, finish Belmont Stakes. We feel that's our sweet part, General Manager Mike Newland said. We feel everything was great about our racing last year, except for the weather. only one of last year's 9 racing days could have been considered pleasant. We reached 60 the first 3 days, and then red temperatures really make the Newland said. We're cursed with terrible weather, but hopefully next year it will be a lot nicer. The state racing circuit will begin with Grand Island, which will race 31 days from February 22nd to May 4th. Horseman's Park will hold its first live day of racing, May Day between and Preakness, and finish on June 8th. Columbus will race 14 days to September 2nd, and Lincoln Racecourse will run 3 days in September. Construction of a track is underway at the Lincoln facility. South Sioux City will hold also will run 1 day of quarter horse racing, number of race days to 59. The proposed race dates were approved unanimously by the commission. That part of the meeting went quickly, Chairman. Each track pretty much will race the same dates as this year. In other commission business, Bonner Park requested the installation of historical racing machines. After a presentation by Amtoad, Bonner's picturing company, the machines were approved unanimously. They meet the statutory definition of pari-mutuel wagering, Lee said. The machines are in use at other tracks around the country. They are produced by Paramax and Amtoad. The company's website said the machines have generated more than $4 billion in mutual hand history. Lee said he didn't Bonner Park plan to implement or when they might be operational. A Kentucky Circuit Court judge ruled last week that the machines were legal in that state and did not violate gambling laws. It's creating a new wager within the scope of pari-mutuel, he said.
Well, Haslam finally tried an approach that didn't work either. Haslam made him change in 2012 by firing Hugh Jackson, who won just 3 over 2+ seasons. His job with offensive coordinator Todd Haley that went public and threatened to turn a promising season into those Cleveland catastrophes. Haslam fired Jackson and Haley with each other one tie, lost 5th consecutive road game, OI of the NFL record. As for his poor track record in finding coaches, Haslam offered no excuses. Defensive coordinator Greg Williams is Cleveland's interim coach, and running backs coach Freddie Kitchen over for Haley. Jameis Winston's inability to cut down on turnovers has cost him his starting job with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Without speculating on what the move quarterback's future with the team, Coach Dirk said that veteran backup Ryan Fitzpatrick will lead the NFL's #1 ranked offense against the Carolina Panthers on Sunday. And Devin McCourtney returned an interception 84 yards for a touchdown, and the New England Patriots smothered the Buffalo offense in a 25-6 win in Buffalo. James White scored, and the Patriots relied more on Cost than on Tom Brady's arm for a win, which improved their AFC East 6 wins and 2 losses. Yep, you got something?
One last note here. Nebraska has 3 of the 15 semifinalists tying Georgia for most for the Buckeyes high school linebackers. All 3 have committed to NU. Nick Heinrich of Omaha Burke, Garrick Snodgrass, and Garrett Nelson of Scotts Bluff. Finalists will be 19th, and congratulations to all those. Well, it's 12 o'clock and it's time for us to say goodbye. So this is Bev Leidig saying thank you for listening.
Van, have a great week, everyone.
Yeah. Pinch hitting for Deb 80, who is still recovering. And we wish her
What happened to Deb?
thank you so much, guys, for doing a wonderful
Deb
job.
did.
Yes.
You're kidding. I was going to ask.
No. And
You're tuned to the Radio Talking Book Network in Omaha, Nebraska. Serving our blind
tell
and visually impaired
Betty
listeners.
that she was going to be here, so I don't think it was
Radio
major,
Talking
but
Book is brought to you
still.
No, no.
Yeah, I know.
Facilities of any
Well, you know, her husband fell.
Yes,
Well,
and
you
that's
know that
why,
whole
and that's
story.
why she wasn't going to.
scary
Oh, I didn't know.
Okay, I filled in.
Scary stories
She
today.
was here
And
one
this
week,
marathon
and then because of
starting
her heart attack,
bookshelf.
and this week for continuation of that, but I didn't know her husband was sick too. So
He fell. Must have been.
We will bring you
I don't know,
our
must be
regular
maybe.
state newspapers. So
I don't know. I'm so bad at 4 weeks or 2 months. It's somewhere. in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Also here the Omaha.
I don't know, walking around in the dark or something. I don't know exactly.
Oh, the
Slipped
grocery.
under-
We'll bring you the grocery.
And,
Aside from that,
Then he,
we're going to bring you.
so he had,
So there you have it, folks.
I
Great
don't know,
afternoon. Stay tuned for the Nebraska Life Hour.
some
Next.
knee or,
Talking book.
from, yes. So then they found out he had some kind of, and then that he might need surgery for that. And something else too. He's been going to doctor's appointments.
Yeah.
And he's got to sit up, and she has to wait on him constantly. And it's just driving him nuts.
Yeah,
And she's, well, this is, Democratic liberal, and he's the opposite.
Oh,
and
no,
they just,
they don't
I don't
agree.
even think I don't know.
Oh, I
don't
like
either,
that
but
in the
and she
same
was,
house,
it's just
and it's just
and
on
he's
you.
like, oh, I need this and I want that. And that's probably what caused. Geez.
I shouldn't laugh at the stress of mine,
Yeah.
the stress of all this, and to add that on.
I hope she's all right.
Yeah, she's. The first time I worked with her, I don't know. Have you been with her?
Oh,
Have you
yeah.
been with her
Yeah, for a
forever?
long time.
Oh, well, and I came into sub, and we were going back and forth, and I would say thank you, and I don't remember. Did she let me thing? And then after we were done, she said, "My name's Deb." Oh, embarrassed. God, and since then, boy, I got to stay and read. He wants me to do a few minutes, so I better get that done. About 5 more filler minutes for the Halloween
okay.
stuff. So
Yeah.
I'll get that done. And,
Well,
well, I don't know. Maybe it'll be some variety.
Yeah, that could be.